When you think of terrible ways of playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games, your mind probably goes to the most obvious places. Maybe to the incredibly derivative Game Boy Color version of THPS-1, developed by Natsume, or maybe to the Nokia N-Gage version of the same game, which, while admittedly very impressive, is on the N-Gage. Or maybe even your mind goes to, but what if I told you that I have come across quite possibly the stinkiest, smelliest way of playing a Tony Hawk game? Disregard Game Boy Color, disregard N-Gage, disregard the weird-ass skateboard peripheral games that nearly kill the guy. This is the worst way to play a Tony Hawk game. Now, it may come as a shock at first, so can I ask you to please promise to not get mad when I reveal what it is? Okay? Here goes. You promised to. This is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, the latest game in the series and quite possibly one of the greatest Tony Hawk games ever made. And yeah, that's right, I'm dragging it out by its feet to dunk on in front of everybody, but if you'd let me explain why before getting pissed, you'd probably understand. So here's what makes it the worst way to play. God damn it, you don't even know what This is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 in virtual reality. Now, this game was never made with VR in mind. In fact, it doesn't even have a VR mode included with it. It's all thanks to one incredible mod, the Universal Unreal Engine VR mod, created by Praydog. With this, you're able to inject VR support into any game or program as long as it's running on the Unreal Engine. With just a few simple clicks and a bit of troubleshooting with camera placement, you're able to step into the shoes of Tony Hawk or your preferred pro skater, and the results are nothing short of incredible. The newfound sense of scale you get when you smash through the glass at the beginning of Warehouse is breathtaking. Has this place always been this huge? Also, man, this rail is tall. Downhill Jam in VR gains a new sense of verticality and speed that you can only get from this perspective. Because of this, it might actually be my favorite level to play like this, even if the pitfall in the middle of the level is now a million times more frightening. And being able to stroll the grounds of the school levels in first person really instills a sense of nostalgia that wasn't really present in the vanilla game. Entering the gym in School 1 gave me pause because of how insanely close it was to my old high school's gym. And there's been bump mapping on the wall padding for the past 5 years? And I'm barely noticing? VR really allows you to take in the immense amount of details that Vicarious Visions put into the game, which mostly go unnoticed with a third-person camera. Look at that. I never even thought about looking up at the helicopter destroying the ceiling in the hangar level, and boy am I glad I did. Look at all that detail in the hole, and the way the snow starts to fall in? They didn't have to do that. Okay, so it's been nothing but constant praise for something that I literally just called the worst way to play Tony Hawk. What the hell, Wolf? What's up with the clickbait? What makes it bad? Well, for one, it makes pulling off and landing tricks incredibly difficult. Since the camera is literally in the head of your character model, figuring out how you're gonna land is next to impossible unless you're constantly looking down at your feet. While this adds to the sense of immersion, it heavily conflicts with the arcade nature of the Tony Hawk games. There is just no time to pretend I'm a Superman in something like this. And you can't really spin your tricks because unless you have the exact timing carved into your brain, you will bail. And this goes doubly so for when you launch off a half pipe. When you get air from going up a pipe, your character sort of pieces out from the camera, and now you can't see anything other than gravity barreling you towards the earth. So, with no way to easily see your orientation, you either have to perform tricks and disregard spins, or have the timing of a god. There is a secret third way, however. Depending on a number of factors, you may be able to actually see your character's shadow on the ground. With this, you can kind of figure out where you're facing and land that way. Super Mario 64 style, baby. Because of this camera issue, I've had my fair share of sloppy landings. Another reason that this is a terrible way to play is that it's mainly a camera modification. UEVR does seem like it allows for you to modify games even further to implement motion controls. It's just up for you or someone else to implement. But with a game like Tony Hawk, I think such controls are impossible to implement. Trust me, I did a heck of a lot of brainstorming, and every idea I came up was just pure ass. Throwing my arms around to just do a kickflip does not sound like a way to live. And you know for a fact that the headset does not give a damn about my feet like I do, so it's just not going to track them at all. on its own at least. The actual buttons and analog sticks on your VR controllers can likely be mapped to play the game traditionally, but at that point you may as well just play with a regular controller, like I did. Motion controls are probably an impossibility unless you have foot trackers or something similar to the Tony Hawk Ride controller, which, by the way, since I don't think I'll ever have another chance to talk about that game, I just have to say that I think that is by far one of the coolest ideas for how to play a skateboarding game. I know it was less responsive than a mummified pharaoh, but if they workshopped it a bit more, it probably could have been a really cool experience. Instead, it tried to kill a guy. Everything up to this was just foreplay. Now, the number one reason that single-handedly ruins this as a potential way of playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1+2. It's disorienting as all hell. You saw this coming, I'm sure. Earlier, I talked about how Tony Hawk games mainly lean towards being arcadey experiences, and with that, there is a sense of speed and gameplay that doesn't really lend itself well to a VR experience, especially if that game was not built with VR in mind. You are just going so fast, jumping off so many things and going up so many ramps, your senses are just being assaulted with so much stimuli that we as a species had not evolved to handle. When you're starting out, you can kind of deal with it, but as the minutes go by, you start to get more and more disoriented. I don't really get motion sickness when playing VR. I did get it a couple weeks back while playing Resident Evil 2 in VR, but I kind of blame that on the fact that I ate like 3 Costco hot dogs beforehand. And that was a very, very mild motion sickness. This was different. After 30 minutes, I was starting to feel woozy and lightheaded, and after a total of 45 minutes, I just had to call it quits. Never threw up or anything, but man, I bet it would have felt so satisfying after all that. I partially blame this on the lack of motion controls. Having a way to interact in the game environment helps a ton with getting immersed in the game, and forgetting that this is just a screen you're looking at. Instead, with only just a controller, you're traversing with little to no physical movement outside of the head tracking. It's almost like riding a roller coaster, but without all the herkin and jerkin that you get from riding one. At least the nausea is still present. While it was very fun experiencing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 in virtual reality, it is just not it, dude. As a novelty you can experience alone or show to your older sister's cool boyfriend, it's great. But it is far too dangerous and pro-vomit to be a legitimate gameplay method. It's unintuitive, disorienting, and just plain silly. Will I ever play Tony Hawk like this again? Probably not. These games are just far too arcadey for virtual reality. A slower paced game like Session would likely be more suited for UE VR, and since that's a game that also runs on Unreal, it might be worth a try. If you're interested in checking out THPS 1+2 with UE VR, here are the settings that I changed to make the camera leveled with the skater. There's probably a few other settings you could toggle or change to make the experience better, so don't be afraid to play around with things. Who knows? Maybe you could potentially change the settings enough to make it not a method of torture. Anyways, that's about it from me. Just wanted to show off this unique way to play Tony Hawk, especially with the new game that's going to be announced. I am so freaking excited, dude. With how good 1+2 is, I can only imagine how good 3+4 or whatever they're going to announce is going to be. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. Maybe I might check out other games with modded VR support. I was thinking of the Resident Evil games, but I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, that's enough for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, afternoon, evening, night, morning, whatever it is in your neck of the woods. I hope it's a good one. Happy skating, and I'll see you later.